I just wanted to have a very informal discussion about the thing. So if you guys are using OVSDB, what actually, this discussion I want to use to kind of plan out the carbon work, what we want to do in that. Okay, how to kind of stabilize this. It's pretty stable, what you need, what new feature you need, what you face in a problem in using it. So any feedback in terms of whenever you're using, what is the missing thing, what we should work on, and how it can be, better consumed, whether it's a performance problem you face, scalability problem you face, or you're looking for a new feature, or it is missing some feature. So any kind of feedback is welcome. This is a tentative list that we build all the committers, which we probably will look at it in the priority in the same order. So performance, scale, and scalability, stability is something which we were kind of started targeting mid of the Boron, and we did some good work there. That is something which we will focus, at least as a PTL. That's my main goal for the project, to kind of get some good performance out of it. It should be scale, do some scale testing. Some of the team, I think Luis Gomez and Jamo, they are kind of doing a scale testing of it, and they are writing some white papers. So we need to kind of have some good numbers out of it. So we'll at least concretely say how much it scales and what is the stability at that scale. So that's going to be one of the main focus, at least for me. And the documentation part of it. So,
What do you mean by scale? Scale of what?
It's a horizontal scaling. How many devices you can support using the plugin?
Ports on each device,
Yeah.
things like this.
In terms of the number of transaction changes that you want to push to the OVSDB?
Yeah, so we'll take a baseline for that, a baseline transaction, for per device. But it's all about how you can, scale it. You can scale vertically or horizontally, right? So the horizontal scaling is something we are looking at. Baseline is, generally the configuration is like per second, how many transaction it happens on the device, right? When it comes to OVSDB, it's not that much, right? Because OVSDB transaction limit is configuring the switch, right? That operation is not frequent. So we can say it's like, 10 operations probably, per minute or something, or per second. Warm-up period, obviously transaction is going to be higher, but in the normal pace, if you see per device transaction per second, if you say it's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 max, right?
So what we should is the usage of OVSDB plugin is different from OpenFlow plugin in that respect. OpenFlow plugin, you'll always be having flows coming in, going out. OVSDB has more of, that bring up a 0-day kind of configuration, or you add a new device, that's when it would come in, and it would more or less stay that way.
You just create bridges, termination point, and you're good.
But thing is, till OVSDB configures everything, your ports or tunnels and all that, everything else gets blocked. So that 0-day configuration it should be able to do. I add a new device, how long it takes for it to, all the device to be aware of. So those kind of things would be
What do you mean by everything is going to be blocked? OpenFlow rules are going to be blocked.
So if the device is not configured, then other project can't use it, right? So even if you don't do the initial configuration, let's say you don't create a bridge and all those things, then OpenFlow plugin won't be able to install the flows, right?
It's
So
not something that forced at this blocking.
yeah, it's a blocking for others, right? So
blocking
this,
in the sense they wait for it to show
so
up.
there is a latency there always, right? So that's
that loop, other applications will not be able to do anything.
yeah. So there is always a latency in that operation, right? So now that's where I think the horizontal scaling for OVSDB matters more, because we have a warm-up time, warm-up operations for the OVSDB, right? That is more crucial for OVSDB perspective. Once the device is connected and configured, you rarely see that there is going to be any configuration as such, right? So that's where, and that configuration, either if something goes down, then they're going to do the operations on OVSDB. Let's say some, tunnel port they need to bring down or something. These are not very frequent operation, I would say. So most of the heat that OVSDB plugin gets is a warm-up time and when things goes down, right? That is something which we're trying to handle. That is one aspect of performance. Now the ones that is less is solved, right? Then the second aspect is horizontal scaling. How many devices you can support at any moment of time. So this is what is going to be part of the performance and scalability. Now the point is scalability is fine. You can connect the devices and all that, but whether you can configure them stably or not, right? That is another aspect of it. What happens if the devices go off and connect back, how the reconciliation will work. So that is another aspect, because if let's say 10 or 20 device goes down and then again suddenly it comes back, it's again a warm up, it's kind of a heat period comes, right? So that graph will go up again. So these are kind of spikes that can come. So how we are going to kind of handle these things. So those are all aspects that's going to go into performance and scale and stability part of it. So I think
Just one more point, so it's not just time. One more aspect that we will look into is how much memory we are using. Can we reduce the memory footprint to do all these things? things. Like we run into leak issues and all that.
Yeah.
It grew to some extent. So time and memory, we want to cut it down as much as possible without impacting stability.
Yeah. So and I think team in Ericsson is kind of pretty much doing some of the aggressive testing about this plugin, and I think Network also Reddit also we are using it. We are consuming it for a Network, and Network give it a good stress at least. If you kind of go for a higher number of nodes. So yeah, that's the whole thing around that, and I think that's critical in the sense if you want to use it, if you want to put in a data center this OVS or something, then you need a controller who are at least 1,000 or 2,000 node it should support, right? So I think the last time we tested, there was no operation as such as the connection, how much it's handling. The connection was 1,800 devices it can support at that time. We did a good improvement here, but at that time, we didn't test with the operations kind of. We didn't fire the operation on the devices as such. It's just a connection handling and how much it handle, how much stats is collect and put it. But yeah, now we need to do a little bit rigorous testing. At least set a baseline for the operation per device and then test it that how much it actually support. So that's what we are thinking. Documentation was another pain because last DDF, one person came to me and I said, oh yeah, it looks everything fine, but I'm finding a hard time in creating a bridge on it. So now the creating a bridge is because for us who is developing this thing, it's probably obvious that we go to REST-conf and we know what to modify and we just do it, right? But the person who is coming new, he don't really know how to kind of configure. He's kind of lost. Okay, there is APIs, but then with look at APIs, they don't really know how to configure it, what to configure it. So usability is a different, aspect. So
yeah, remember we had some kind of interaction about, I can't remember what it's called, southbound utils, OVSDB.
Yeah.
So, and I totally agree that needs to die. But one of the things I think would be nice to have is an API.
So something
higher level abstraction there.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it. It will give it, but that higher level abstraction you can give in multiple levels. Let's come to this. But yeah, this is what a document. And so documentation is for purpose of what currently we have and what we can improve so that they start using it, right? Now, once people started using it, they can give more feedback about these things, whether these interfaces are good enough or we need higher level abstraction and all those. Because abstraction, sometimes gets subjective.
Right.
So
the southbound utils, more or less, to my mind, I mean, we use it in Network, and it's just like everything with MD. It's part of the problem is just like everything with MD solids. At the end of the day, you need to wrap it in some kind of.
Exactly.
Yeah. And I think that for the most part, what OVSDB does is pretty straightforward, and I think it could be wrapped in a nice API.
So it's like an API which doesn't need to bother with anti-sal semantics.
Right, and unlike the southbound utils, it shouldn't suck. And southbound utils was never designed. Right.
It was like on need basis. I want this. Let me add it.
Right.
So
and one more thing I would say, like southbound utils. See, we have to just be a bit careful. Like, how are we going to use this? One would be the person who is going to use it. App they want something, or it could be another anti-cell app. They would have different requirements on these APIs.
So there is two options here.
Right? Usability will touch back.
On this thing. So that's more outcome to. So documentation, is something which I have to work on because I need to push folks to kind of write something about it.
One more thing is we do have Postman collection, which is easier for someone trying out for the first
No,
time.
even
It's as part of the repository. It's not documented properly in a wiki or something.
Yeah. So this is something kind of a tutorial or a wiki page where they easily can go and say, okay, this is my OVS, connect to controller, do this, and blah, thing work, right? And this is as simple as. But it's like they don't know how to do it, right? So once they start it, so the person who asked me, I gave him a 5-minute tutorial and he was good with that. After that he didn't ask me anything. He did all this configuration of termination point and all things. So he got the at least starting point. So we need some kind of initial documentation. Other thing is about the features we have, right? So we have features in a QoS related features. Now how to configure it. Now we have auto attached table work also. Then we have a DPDK. So somebody asked me how you support DPDK, with the OVS. So these kind of use cases and some of the we can have a good documentation out there that will actually help the adaptability part of it. So we basically need more people to use it so we can get more feedback out of it, right? So that's the whole intention about the documentation part. That these initial two are kind of my main priority for the Carbon release, and I'll be focusing that. More unit test and the CSIT. So the good thing is, good and a bad news. Good news is that we have good CSIT for it. That's working, that's green. So it's stable for a while now, it's like a month or so. Even the clustering part of it, clustering CSIT are kind of stable. But the bad part is we don't really have a full-fledged, the overall, coverage of functionality there. So we have a basic operation kind of creating bridge termination point and all those things, but we don't have a QS related, we don't do DPDK testing and all that, right? So that is something which, we need to improve in UT and CSIT. Now that's about the OVSDB plugin, OVSDB, at least it has some basic CSITs, but I think hardware VTAP, I think that's another challenge, but we need to add a CSIT for that because it's going
Talk
to...
to Victor.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was expecting him to be here, so I was talking to him.
So Victor is doing hardware VTAP testing?
Yeah.
So I think that is something we need to add to the, CSIT. Yeah. Okay.
But does that require any other special infra?
I think OVS has a hardware VTAP support, right?
OVS running with
Sort
hardware
of.
VTAP schema.
I think, we can...
You have to play with it.
Josh was working a bit on. You were working on it back for the Docker base of that.
No, I was working. I didn't quite work on it. I was watching it.
Okay.
But basically, you have to install a schema for it, and then you can do it.
Yeah. So that is something is like workaround is required, but I think using OVS we
He
can...
has tests. I
Okay.
think that Victor actually has stuff.
Yeah, I think then we should put it, it's like...
I have some very basic tests and one IT file is there which is just basic connection testing and one physical switch creation. But for adding more tests, I wanted to have that infra in place so that we can run it, then I can get people to start adding more and more tests.
I think from
To
that...
run test, I have to run a VM, configure it, get it working, and then run IT.
I think that's where we can use the Docker and IT infrastructure that we wrote, right?
That was the plan. That was the
So that is IT which at least have some initial sanity check thing, at least in
It's
that.
perfect for that.
Yeah.
So that's what I think Victor has.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure he has that.
Yeah.
Okay, we are trying to get work.
Okay. So you'll try to reach out to him?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's what we discuss every week
Why
for
would we
the
not?
past 2 months.
Okay. Okay. That's
I don't think
good.
it's in Network. I don't know where he put it.
What?
He put it in Network? I don't know. It shouldn't be in Network.
What?
Victor's hardware VTAP IT.
Hardware VTAP IT is...
OVSDB.
I know, but he says he thinks that for some reason he wrote the test inside Network.
No, but that probably be for L2 gateway, right?
That might be L2 gateway test, not the hardware readout.
Oh, okay.
Hardware
We are
VTAP.
talking about plugin specific.
Hardware VTAP, I saw patches where from Victor who's doing the hardware VTAP. I'm not sure how deep in that it is, but yeah, something related to that. I didn't try that, but yeah, some things, that infrastructure is something which we can use, and I think that's going to be a very quick thing to write something on that, right?
Yeah.
So that's where we can at least start with CSIT for hardware VTAP, right?
The
So
Docker thing is in OVSDB.
yeah, that I know.
And if you need any,
I know. Yeah, I'll catch Victor for sure. I know him. But one thing is when this comes back to our documentation, right? So we have a Java doc and all those things, right? I think I pointed this thing in a wiki also, but we need some a better formal document which we can at least the new people who generally start from CSIT and UT, if they can use it and it's pretty easy to use them, then it's fine.
so there is actually a page for the Docker thing. But I think that since I put that page up, I think that both you and Sam have made changes that are not in the wiki page.
Okay.
I should have given
So then probably we migrate that to wiki page or something. What I'm planning for a documentation, what my thought process as of now is we need to have a doc-source directory in our repo. So whatever document you put in RST form, that automatically will be built by this doc project, and it will be published on OpenDaylight website.
And
So
it should be part of the code review.
Yeah.
It's a good way to enforce it.
So it's a good code review and everything, and you can see documentation per release. Okay, so whatever documentation we'll put in a stable, and then they will show in a stable web page of that OpenDaylight. And if we are in master, we change, so the changes will reflect as and when you select the branches. So that's how you can easily maintain the documentation across the different branches.
We should have those RSTs up, and then any new change coming in should come as part of those patches, documentation patch should also.
Yeah. So that's
Documentation is essentially for a new feature.
so that's where we will come to the development, process, the new development process. Like, but that's the next. So these are the three main thing. I think the UTC set is something which I think now we have to kind of pseudo enforce it. We don't really want to enforce work to kind of block on that because it actually hamper the development part. But
Right now we have most of the basic features, and now it's the right time to focus.
yeah, so it's good to have a CSIT around that. If they are pushing a big feature, I must say that they add a CSIT because
Especially before we started going refactoring the code and making all those improvements, let's make sure we have test cases.
yeah. So at least the good thing is like for hardware VTAP and OVSDB, the code base is pretty same, right? The core code base.
more or less,
So whatever you're testing in, OVSDB, that if something breaks there, it will definitely break the hardware VTAP also. So that way we are kind of doing the common IT there. So that's a good part, but that doesn't solve the whole problem. So we need to do the, hardware VTAP specific testing. So that's, I think we should focus on more.
And one more thing, like some of the issues I recently ran into, they only happen if you have both running at the same
time.
So most of the CSITs are OVSDB only, or even test cases what we currently have hardware VTAP only. So maybe while we are writing CSIT, we need to think of this coexistence kind of test cases where both are running. One can cause issue to another. Like today in Genius, we bring up southbound first, then a hardware VTAP, anyone can use it in a different order also. We need to make sure we work either ways. Little things.
Yeah, so that was one nasty bug, I would say, because you load and loading time actually change. Hardware VTAP loads late, but if the connection comes first, it's not going to notify the hardware VTAP plugin that connection is there. So that was a bug. Yeah. So those all things surface when you kind of write a more CS site. What's up, dude? You're a test contact. You need to come and join us. So new features, I wanted to get some of your feedback. These are some tentative things that was my top in my head, and I put it here. One thing is a singleton clustering. So clustering platform, they implemented the singleton clustering.
Are we waiting for OpenFlow plugin to come back with results on testing?
Well, so some of the initial result for OpenFlow plugin is good basically. So their clustering actually improved. Performance didn't, but that's not our concern. But yeah, the clustering wise.
So because I just want to make sure for us higher priority that number one, would it impact that?
Yeah, so clustering, I think the result from OpenFlow plugin is good. It's good, and they solve a lot of their, corner cases and bugs and anything related to entity ownership handling part of it. So that is, although it's like for us, clustering is not a big pain, but if everybody's moving in that direction, we probably can defer it for a next release also. As of now, we can do more scale testing, we figure out more issues and all that. Yeah, but this is one good thing to kind of keep in mind because it's like OpenFlow plugin actually improved. So
no, it's improved, but I'm not sure if they've done any performance and scale testing on top of.
No, performance and scale testing is not done. Whatever is done, that's not showing a positive result. But I'm not sure whether that's because of the clustering or something else, right? So clustering, I think pretty much singleton clustering is a wraparound around the entity ownership service. So it should not put much of an impact as such. But yeah, you lose some of the control, but you give the controls.
Like when you have control, you can think of ways to improve performance and all that.
So
we may need. So it's like an open question. Let's see.
It's a kind of a trade-off, but the thing is, the way the clustering return is a bit complex. So if some new person come, there is a good chances that he will break the code, right? So that's why we want to have it as simple as possible. So they come, they should not afraid, oh man, the clustering is kind of part of the whole code. And that might be breaking because most of the time we run the single node CSIT and everything works and we are thinking, okay, everything is good. But the moment you run the 3-node clustering, you're gone, right? So that's where I think singleton clustering brings the simplicity. So at least code will be simple so that people, won't generate these Heisenberg errors and when, right? We don't really want to get surprised after the release that this is buggy, right? So that's the reason I put it there. But yeah, I think we need a detailed discussion on this and whether people have resources to kind of anybody is interested in this or not. But yeah, this is something definitely we should keep in, our mind. So refactoring of the OVSDB library. So I think, Stephen, you are working on some of the refactoring part of it, right? So so some of the patches I already see. So is there any more patches coming or any more ideas which you think, we should do at least?
Well, the patches I've been doing so far are just basic cleanup, but yeah, we need to, along the lines of what Josh was saying as well, try to turn it more into something that's well, designed and where everything is sort of sensible in English language so that it's easier to test and so that the parts where it's useful can be used without MD-cell.
So some of this code, library code, the only one code of piece that we need to look at is the connection handling. It's there, but it's not very clean as of now, right? If you look at this, it's okay, something is done just for the sake of handling connection. And that actually lead to another problem. That problem is related to the message passing. So we don't really have a robust mechanism to kind of process the message in parallel or still maintain the ordering kind of thing. So we don't really have. Luckily, everything is working because the kind of scenario we are trying. But that if we scale out, this will blow first. This is a bottleneck. Okay, so that is something which is critical for the performance part of it. So I was thinking if we can, I think OpenFlow plugin is using LMAX disruptor for better packet processing thing. It's something if we can introduce that here, that probably be helpful. We can get something here. But the only concern with the parallel is, oh, you are running, okay. But it's still, we have 2 minutes more, right? What the hell? So. Schema update on hardware VTAP. I think this is what Ericsson, Daya was talking to me. So these
changes that implementation will be coming.
Okay.
The Yang is already there.
Okay. So it's already pushed, or it's like
Changes were already pushed.
Oh, that is in okay. Okay. Support for hybrid environment. I think you added Vishal this point in this. Sam. Okay. So this is I think
It's kind of follow on of the previous third and fourth are kind of related.
okay.
It ties into like security groups we already have for OVS, right? So ACLs we can extend security groups to bare metals behind that door also.
Okay.
That's what this will enable. That's the use case.
Okay. So the hardware VTAP Yang model for the better performance. What is
So the thing is in OVS it's kind of very linear way, like updates coming on one table don't have any correlation with them either. But it's not like that in hardware VTAP schema. So in Yang we have certain these dependencies where we need events, say A, B, and C to come before I can process the next one, and they can come in different order again. So it comes with ordering and stuff. So I was thinking maybe instead of trying to solve these problems on a piecemeal basis, revisit the Yang models which eliminates this problem. So it's a.
So this is.
Not have an answer, but it's something
This is something anybody exploring, because the point is this thing is we can't really afford it to do it in the end of the release.
Yeah.
So if we are planning something need to come upfront in this release so that we can notify everyone. It's just that network is something as of now.
We ran into certain issues while towards the end of the Boron cycle, but I did not want to impact anything. But like, okay, maybe I'll take it up in the startup of the Cowan cycle.
Okay.
So maybe Sunil and I would be looking into this and bring it up for discussions.
Okay. So last thing is.
Something that we're going to
No, it's just the way it's optimized, if I'm saying, because OVS game also you have references sometimes. So like the parent table and all that. So it's much more prominent in hardware VTAP schema, which complicates.
Okay, so for rest of the topic, guys, I'll share it on OVSDB mailing list, and let's start the discussion on it, because usability and higher level abstraction I think require more time to kind of discuss. So thanks everyone.
Things like this.
In terms of the number of transaction changes that you want to push to the OVS.
Yeah, so we'll take a baseline for that, a baseline transaction, for per device, but it's all about how you can, scale it. You can scale vertically or horizontally, right? So the horizontal scaling is something we are looking at. Baseline is, generally the configuration is like per second, how many transaction it happens on the device, right? When it comes to OVSDB, it's not that much, right? Because OVSDB transaction limit is configuring the switch, right? Or you are looking for a new feature, or it is missing some feature. So any kind of feedback is welcome. This is a tentative list that we build all the committers, which we probably will look at it in the priority in the same order. So performance, scale, and scalability, stability is something which we were kind of started targeting mid of the Boron, and we did some good work there. That is something which we will focus, at least as a PTL. That's my main goal for the project, to kind of get some good. I just wanted to have a very informal discussion about the thing. So if you guys are using OVSDB, what actually this discussion I want to use to kind of plan out the carbon work, what we want to do in that. Okay, how to kind of stabilize this. It's pretty stable. What you need, what new feature you need, what you face in a problem in using it. So any feedback in terms of whenever you're using, what is the missing thing, what we should work on, and how it can be, better consumed. Whether it's a performance problem you face, scalability problem you face, that operation is not frequent. So we can say it's like 10 operations probably per minute or something, or per second. Warm-up period, obviously transaction is going to be higher, but in the normal pace, if you see per device transaction per second, if you say it's going to be 1 or 2 or 3 max, right?
So what we should is the usage of OVSDB plugin is different from OpenFlow plugin in that respect. OpenFlow plugin, you'll always be having flows coming and going out. OVSDB has more of, that bring up a 0-day kind of configuration, or you add a new device, that's
Performance out of it. It should be scale, do some scale testing. Some of the team, I think Luis Gomez and Jamo, they are kind of doing a scale testing of it, and they are writing some white papers. So we need to kind of have some good numbers out of it. So we'll at least concretely say how much it scales and what is the stability at that scale. So that's going to be one of the main focus, at least for me. And the documentation part of it. So,
What do you mean by scale? Scale of what?
it's a horizontal scaling. How many devices you can support using the plugin.
Ports on each device.
Yeah.